Charlene wrote a letter. I didn't write nothing. I'll be nice because when I was a little boy, Chuck used to let me go to the football games with him on Friday nights to watch him in the band. I actually started learning to play music from watching him in church on Sunday morning, playing the drums. So he's been around me for, geez, about 42 years now. Yeah, it's been about 42 years. Wow. You know, bro. Anyway, we've had one of these, used to be like I call it, maybe a love-hate relationship. Because when we had the group Matthew, Chuck he used to irritate me. Because, well, okay, thank you, all of us. Because Chuck was like a perfectionist. It had to be his way or it wasn't right. So I remember, Janet, you was around there too. I remember getting up one day because he really made me mad. I said, you know, I don't need it. I walked out. I left. So I never told him this, but
Chuck told him to get out.
Oh, well, he said, well, Charlene said Chuck told me to get out. So, anyway, whatever it was, I know I walked out, I left. Was it a church band? Yeah, it was a church band. It didn't matter. I got to get back to church. It didn't matter. But I'm going to tell you, I never said this, but I felt bad because I remember you guys went out of town to sing one day. And John Ward was playing the drums. And y'all did that little recording and everything. And that kind of, I was like, wow, Chuck really got rid of me. So, I mean, it was cool because it helped me with myself. You know, it helped me go make some money, so I was all right with that. But for real, you need to stop reading so much. You get too deep. It'd be hard for you to be a pastor at a church. You know why? You're too deep for some people, man. Slow down a little bit. I love you because you're still my big brother. Okay? Charlene, I won't say no more. And I know who's the boss in the house. She's right there. You already know. But Chuck did tell me a long time ago to leave her alone and I'll be all right. But I didn't listen. Now here I am. There wasn't no crack. It's all good.
Okay. Is this on?
Yes.
You like to do a church life one?
Okay. Well, I wasn't really expecting to get up here, so I thought I'd better write down a few little notes. So, see where I want to start.
Oh, wait.
I've got about 9 things that I want to say about Chuck Easton. Okay, I had 8, but Sarah reminded me of 1. Auntie Sarah. Okay, I was trying to get them kind of like in the order of how it happened, but it might be a little bit off. But anyway, okay, I remember, I guess maybe about 35 years ago, I was at church and I was near my sister Emma, and Chuck came by and he said, hey, 5 years from now, if I'm not married and you're not married, what do you say we get married? And I looked around like, what? And I couldn't believe that somebody would be, so bold to walk up and say something. And that one ain't even on my paper, but that's a free one. But anyway, do you know, 5 years later, they were either engaged to get married or getting married, somewhere in there. I thought, wow, how about that? I thought that was kind of strange, but it happened, so I mean, whatever. But before they actually got married,
keep it clean.
well, I guess I won't mention the next one then. But I'll say this, okay, we all were involved in the choir, and so from time to time, Chuck would get a ride home from Emma. Now, the first time that, and I was riding with her too. So, of course, I was in the back seat, and they were in the front seat. You want me to stop now?
No. Keep going.
This one might roast Emma too. But anyway, so Chuck gets out the car, and he's talking and everything, and we all talking and involved in the conversation. And then all of a sudden, I got a little embarrassed because then he just said, excuse me. And I didn't know what he said excuse me for. But then it was because he wanted to swap spit. And he did. With Emma, of course. And so, anyway.
Wait, were they married yet?
No. This was when they were dating. So that was the first time that he rode with us. But then the times after that, he didn't say excuse me. He just went for it. So that was the first thing. The next thing, okay, this is when they were still dating.
Charlotte, we're informing your mom about this now. You know anything about that, right?
So this is when they were dating, and of course, with, it's all going to the same church. People would see Chuck and Emma coming and going, and so I don't know if he got in as much trouble as she did, but I remember our church mother came up to her one time and said, "What you trying to do? Fall in love?" And then they were, constantly getting called in for a conference. By the pastor. Yes, by the pastor. And so, anyway, still before they got married, my family used to go to Georgia pretty much every year because that's where my parents are from. So, this one particular time, I didn't know exactly how this worked out, but Chuck got to go with us. And this was before he and Emma were married. And so, he did. And so he stayed, I think he stayed with one of my dad's cousins there. But anyway, the part that I thought was kind of funny is because my dad's cousin, our cousin's wife, she just thought that Chuck was all that in a bag of chips. And so when she saw, she said, "Oh, this is a nice looking young man. Oh yeah, he's very handsome." And so then, they were going with the conversation, and then the next thing, Chuck was walking through the room again, and then she said, "Ooh, such a nice looking young man." And so every time I turned around, Chuck was walking through the room. And I think it's because every time he walked through there, she would say, "Ooh, that's a nice looking young man." So I don't know, he probably walked through about 10 or 15 times. So then, as time went on, he and Emma did get married. And the year after they got married was when my husband first said, first let it be known that, he had an interest in me. And so the thing that Chuck did concerning that, or that he had to do with that, was, my husband pursued me for a few years. And to be exact. But during the course of those 12 years, Al kept asking people for advice. And when he went to Chuck and asked him for advice, Chuck told him, "Oh man, forget her." And I looked at him like, "What do you mean forget me?" And then he said, "Forget her, it's more fish in the sea." And I thought, wow, you're supposed to be my brother. But anyway, I just thought that was a crazy thing for him to say. But, like Al said, he didn't. And here we are. And funny thing about that, since Chuck told him to forget me, really, we probably shouldn't have had him do the wedding. Because as Sarah said, when he was doing the wedding, when he got to the part, do you, Alan, take Charlene to be da-da-da-da-da, and then where he had to say, "I do," and "I, Alan, take thee, Charlene." I never said that part. He skipped it. Skipped it. But he said it. And so I told Al, I said, "Well, really, I never," because Al said something to me one time about, "Well, we promised it." I said, "I didn't promise it." I said, "Chuck did. So really, you're married to him." And then later on, when our first son came on the scene, he spent a lot of time with the Eastons. And this one time, Emma had told me about this. They were all riding in the car, and everybody was laughing and having a good time. Chuck was driving, Emma was sitting in the front seat passenger side, and then all of a sudden, my son Joe said, "Shh, be quiet, your father's sleeping." Well, he was driving. Which brings me to another point that happened just a couple of weeks ago. We just recently closed out Youth Weekend, and so on a Sunday afternoon we had a rehearsal with the young people, and so I was playing the piano, and Chuck, he agreed to play the bass, and you know, I needed all the help I could get. And so I really did appreciate him agreeing to play the bass for the choir. Well, we were practicing, and all of a sudden, I didn't hear the bass anymore. And I was wondering, well, why did he stop playing? And I turned around and looked at him, and he was like, Just a couple more points to make about Chuck Easton. One of the first things that I noticed about him, even before he and Emma started dating, was even though he was kind of mild-mannered, he could tell you off in a calm way. And one time I passed by him, we were in the basement of the church, and I was passing by him, and he was talking to one of the kids at the church, and the kid had said something, made a crack on him. Man, I tell you, I had never heard anybody call anybody a name with as many adjectives as Chuck used that day. And I just had to stop for a minute, and I said, that must be something from Chicago. Because, I mean, he was like, you old nothing. And I was thinking, oh my God, how many adjectives can you use to cut one person down? But I mean, he did it. You still talk like that? And another thing, that other side of Chuck that, you know, you don't see too often, this particular time, we had an incident at church, and there was a man that was there, and he agitated a lot of the brothers. And I was about 8 months pregnant with my younger daughter, and I'm sitting up in the choir stand, and I could see back through the doors. I saw my husband looking like he was getting ready to leap on somebody, and somebody was holding him back. And I was like, what is going on? So I go wilding out there trying to figure out, and they wouldn't really let me get in the mix as far as what was going on because of my, you know, state. And so then later on, everybody was gathered down in the basement, and I guess maybe to cool off, blow steam, whatever. So I go down there to try to find out, why was my husband getting ready to fight this man on the front porch of the church? And so when I get downstairs, here I'm thinking that everything started with my husband and the other guy, and I found out that Chuck was in the midst of things. And the thing, it really surprised me because we're all sitting there, and I mean, he didn't look mad or nothing like that, but he was just standing there, and then one of the ministers said, you know, well, you just don't even pay him any attention, this, that, and the other, and then Chuck said, no, I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but he said he's looking for something, and I'm about to show him. And then he comes off like that, and I was like, oh my God, Chicago's showing up again. I was like, boy, he punched the But that day, those are the only 2 times that, well, except for the time that he went off on Al and told him to get out of rehearsal. 3 times that I've seen Chuck go off. And those were the 3 times. And last but not least, I think I got everything else on here. One thing that I really do appreciate about Chuck is that we've had opportunities for many rap sessions. And I mean, whenever we get together, somebody will ask, well, usually Chuck will ask a crazy question to get people to really thinking. And then I also knew that if I had any wild or crazy questions, that, you know, he was somebody that I could go to and ask, and he would give me a straightforward answer. And one thing that I used to always say to him was, let's get real. You know, and because I really wanted, you know, to know the uncut version of whatever I was asking. And, you know, that's one thing that I've always enjoyed about him, is that we can get together, we can discuss anything, and I really have gained a whole lot through those, I'm trying not to choke, but I've really gained a whole lot through those conversations that we've had, those rap sessions. And one time I asked him, though, since he's always stirring things up, I noticed that Cedric had a lot of questions. And I asked him one day, I said, how does it feel to have you in your own house all over again? And he said that it was, you know, kind of rough sometimes and kind of scary sometimes. But, you know, I thank God for that part of him that has added so much to my spiritual growth. Happy birthday, Chuck.